Good morning and welcome to 9 at 9 Home Edition. And this is a special one because I am going to introduce you to some really important people in my life. I always like to envision, they say if you could have an imaginary dinner party and you could invite whoever you wanted to invite, past, present, future, who would you invite? And these authors that I'm getting ready to introduce you to are who I would absolutely love. It would be like the biggest gratitude dinner ever. I would cook my best meal. I would lay out the nicest linens, most beautiful flowers for these people because they have spoken into my heart. They have expanded my faith. They have been a beacon of light when I was in a place of darkness. These books are treasures. I've written in the margins. I have, bend out the pages. So these are really important people to me. And in many ways, I think that Corona has given us this opportunity to reveal more of ourselves. And by me sharing with you, who means a lot to me, I think you get to see a little into my own personal spiritual journey. I am just always a seeker. I love to read. That's probably my biggest joy is to read. It might have something to do with my mom giving me Oreo cookies and milk when I was a kid and sending me up to my room with a book. But anyway, so let's start. My first one that I'd like to introduce you to, because I have such a fan crush on her, is Barbara Brown Taylor. So not only is she a New York Times bestselling author, but she's an Episcopal priest. She's a professor, and I've gone to listen to her speak, and she really is this beacon that radiates calm, clear light. And all of her books, I think she's written like 30, and she even has a children's book, all of which I've read and reread. But I'm going to welcome you to two today. The first one is An Altar in the World, a geography of faith. And this is just such a practical, beautiful, easy, expose on how faith can be so integral in your everyday life, and how just what you perceive as being the most ordinary things actually are sacred and even holy. So it's just a beautiful read. So I highly recommend this one. And then right now in these Corona days, I think her most recent book, which is Learning to Walk in the Dark, is really great. It'll be a balm for your soul. It's just, for us not to be so afraid of the dark, to not be so afraid of the unknown, and that God is with us always. But this is a really great one. So Barbara Brown Taylor, she's one of my favorites. And then I'm going to talk about another fan favorite, which is Richard Rohr. He has been on my bucket list for the last 10 years to meet him. And I actually got to go to Santa Fe. It was my first time to be in New Mexico, and I got to spend 4 days, and I got to hear Richard Rohr several times, and it was better than I could have ever imagined. Let's just say that. He has written probably bajillions of books, all of which I've read. And this one, though, is The Universal Christ. It is sacred reading, and it is, I just love how he uses his faith. Like I said, he's a Franciscan priest, but he just, he just believes Christ is everywhere, and he believes in original goodness, that God started everything from a place of goodness, and God is moving us all to a place of goodness. And he believes the world is sacred, and that it's our job to see Christ in everyone, everything, every experience, and that we're never separated from God. This is a jewel. So I highly recommend Richard Rohr. And I promise you, once you start, you'll end up reading everything that he has written. Another person that I really love is Shauna Niequist. And she is actually a contemporary. She is around my age. And she has children. And she's, again, a New York Times bestselling author. But I just really love, she kind of speaks my spiritual language. Food is important to her, nature is important to her, coming together around the table, family, friends. She grew up in the church. Her father is a minister, and so the church is a home to her, and she talks about that a lot. The first book that I ever read by Shauna was Cold Tangerines, and this is great. This is just every day. She just finds a sacred in everyday living. And then Present Over Perfect was a game changer for me, because I'm a little bit of a spinning top, and I am a little bit of a road runner, constantly going. And she's a little bit like that too. And she realized that it was more important to be present. And we miss God lots and lots because we're so busy and we're trying to cross our T's and dot our I's. And we only get this one precious life. And so we want to be present to it. So this is a really beautiful read. I also encourage you to go to her Instagram, because she posts, especially during this Corona time, she's been posting pretty thoughtful reflections. And then finally, another book of hers that I love, of course, is Bread and Wine, because it's full of recipes and blessings, and it's just a great book. So Shauna Niequist, I highly recommend her. And then Mary Oliver. So Mary Oliver, she actually passed away, sadly, a year ago, but she is... just her poetry is like a liturgy for me. And I really can't say more about how, she's written so many, and I'm sure most of you know who she is. But right now, I think A Poem of Day by Mary Oliver is how you'll get through Corona. I highly recommend that you check out Mary Oliver and her poetry. And then finally, and this is someone that I have just brought back out. My mom introduced me to Frederick Beaton probably 15 years ago. And I read his autobiographies. He has like 3. One is called Now and Then. Another one is called The Sacred Journey. Just this week, I've just finished reading Beaton 101, Essays and Sermons. And it's amazing. Anne Lamott put it together. But he reminds me of C.S. Lewis, but an American C.S. Lewis. He's smart, he's witty, he's not sentimental about faith or Christianity, but he gives you something to chew on, and he gives you like a hope that feels not fleeting, but real and tangible. To get you started on Beaton, Listening to Your Life, it's a daily devotional, and they're not very long. You can see they're pretty short, but this gives you little bite-sized Beaton, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Maya Angelou wrote the introduction. It's just such a beautiful read. So all of these are my spiritual books. I could have given you so many more. Henry Nouwen is another fan of mine, Thomas Merton. But I didn't want to leave you without some novels, because I love a good story, especially one that has some love in it, redemption. So anyway, I thought I would just give you a handful of fun reads that could take you away during these Corona days, because everybody loves a great story. So right now, my mom gave me, this is an old one, but it is such a good story. And Penelope, who is the protagonist, is a character that I have a feeling I will remember. But it's Rosamund Pilcher, The Shell Seekers. This is a fun read right now. And don't we need some fun reads too? This one, The Power of One. My husband is the one that introduced me to this one. And this is a beautiful story of redemption. I promise you will not forget this book. Okay? The Map of Love. I kind of went through a series where I was reading a lot of stories and about English India, and this one is a beautiful historical fiction that has a great story and great characters. I'm a big fan of characters that have some soul to them, and it doesn't mean they're perfect, but you just know that they're trying to do the best they can and they're trying to find their way. Okay, two more. Let's see. I love Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Love in the Common Color is probably one of my favorites. But his spiritual realism is just knocks my socks off. I love this. Another one that does this really well, the spiritual realism, is Isabella Allende. She's one of my favorites too. Okay, I'm sure everybody has read this. If you have not read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, please go buy it today. This has got a lot of spiritual nuggets in it, and my son Charlie reads it once a year. I've probably read it 10 times. I love this book, The Alchemist. And then for fun, sorry, let me reach over here on the table. I love anything that Alice Hoffman writes. She's a spiritual author, and I just really love her storytelling. And she really takes you off on a journey, and you really just you lose yourself in her books. And so this is a great one, but she's written many books, so check her out. And finally, because Dave is telling me to reel it in, Gentleman in Moscow, if you haven't read this one. Oh my gosh, The Gentleman in Moscow. He is a character that you will not forget. So I really hope you have a blessed week. If you would, I'd love it if you'd buy the books at Parnassus, our local bookstore. We know that we need to support local right now, and I know that they would be so honored and grateful if you would order the books from them. I hope you have a wonderful week.